40inbox.com here, and we're going to be checking out this TikTok called The Average Person Has $5,000 of Credit Card Debt by the Credit Brothers. So let's check this out.
The average person has over $5,000 worth of credit card debt. And if you don't get that debt paid off soon, then with a new scoring model coming out from FICO, it might become impossible for you to ever buy a house. So we all know
Well, I mean, that's kind of like fear mongering, you know?
FICO scores. That's the score that the banks like to look at. But there's a brand new model that banks are starting to use called FICO 10T. So what FICO is now going to be able to use is not just a snapshot of how much debt you have today, but they're going to be able to look back 24 months in the past, which means that if you had a lot of debt for 23 months, and then this month you paid all of it off and think that now you can just go and get approved for a home loan, that might not be the case once they start using this particular FICO model for all of their lending. In general, if you're trying to buy a house within the next year, you want to get your credit card debt less than 30% of your overall credit usage as quickly as possible.
The reality is, one, this new, potentially new FICO credit score system doesn't really actually matter because when you get approved for like a home loan, the only things that matter is your debt to income ratio. And you can't have like a debt to income ratio of basically more than 50%. So what that means is, let's say that you make 5K a month after tax, right? You can't be like having like debt payments more than half that. And even at like 40%, it's kind of like iffy whether or not you would be approved for a home loan. Now, obviously, this varies for like VA loans, etc. But the reality is, the less debt that you have, the less responsibilities in terms of payments that you have, the more likelihood you're going to be able to be approved for a loan regardless. And by the way, many people don't even know this, you could end up like getting approved for a loan without ever actually having debt to begin with, which is called manual underwriting. But many people don't go down that path because sometimes it might be more of a pain to do it. But basically, as long as you pay off your debt, and if you do end up using like a credit card and you pay that off every month, you'll be fine, right? So it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but you definitely don't want to be carrying debt, period, right? Especially not on a credit card because you're basically paying 29 potential like 29% potentially in interest for what? In the hopes that your credit score might be higher, which in the grand scheme of things it probably is not because you have a higher utilization rate by carrying debt. So keep that in mind. The things that really affect your credit score is the credit history, like how long have you had credit, how much of the credit do you end up using. So let's say for example that you got like a credit limit on a credit card of like 10 grand. Well, you basically want to be not utilizing basically any of that. Or basically you spend like a grand on it but pay it off immediately. So you're never actually carrying a balance, so your credit utilization is basically nothing, which would help your credit score. Also, making on time payments would really affect your credit score. If you miss even one payment, that will ding your credit pretty harshly. And sometimes, not all the cases, but sometimes even missing like a phone bill can cause your credit to decrease. So just make sure that if you have payments, like monthly recurring payments, make sure that they are paid on time. But yeah, like this whole thing about the new FICO credit score system doesn't really matter, right? Now, the sad reality of potentially the average person having $5,000 of credit card debt is pretty depressing. But let's check out some of these comments. Let's see. Just another way to prevent the average American from becoming a homeowner. The thing is, if you have debt on your credit card, you are probably not ready to be a homeowner. Fun fact, anyone in their 20s right now can't afford a house anyways, I mean, technically not true. Why does life just get hard? I guess harder every day. Credit wasn't a thing until the 80s. It's a way to keep the poor poor so rich people can exploit them more. Lenders generally don't use the latest FICO model. Yeah, like mortgage lenders don't really care about the FICO credit score in a way. They really mainly focus on what is your debt to income ratio. Why do they hate the working class so much? The working class has nothing to do with credit card debt. So it's not good to have debt, but also got to have debt to be able to have good credit. The matrix making it more difficult. No, that is not technically the case. You never really want to be carrying debt at all. As if it wasn't already impossible enough. Already wasn't impossible enough. My wife and I just paid off 10K in debt in one payment, and we've never felt better, so worth it. Props to you. Which, by the way, if you want to learn how to get out of debt and learn how I got out of debt and grew my net worth, go down below or go to 40unbox.com. So funny how the person who makes way more money gets a way better interest rate and gets the cheaper rate than someone who makes less. I hate it here. I mean, that depends on your situation. I mean, VA loans tend to be like, depending on if you're like fully disabled, could be basically one of the cheapest ways to get a house if you're able to have that option. But what some people may not know, if you are a very wealthy individual, there are ways to basically take loans out on the money that you already have for practically nothing. Credit scores are a shell game. Fun fact, VA loans don't care. I guess I'm above average with zero credit card debt with 20 credit cards. That's a lot of credit cards. But hey, props to you, no credit card debt. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't even understand too about credit cards in general. Like, there's all these like talks about like points and like cash back, which by the way, I have a cashback credit card. I use it for like recurring expenses on a monthly basis, but it's paid off all the time. But it's sad because I'm able to benefit from that cashback system or get points, right? If I were to go down that route, simply because there are so many people that have debt on their credit card. So basically, everyone who is using a credit card, me included, is basically taking benefits from people because they're bad with their money, right? Which is a sad situation. So like I'm like taking advantage of the credit card company because they're taking advantage of people who are bad at managing their money, which is like a really messed up situation when you think about it. So what if you have 50K debt and it takes you years to pay it off? Well, I mean, it depends because depending on what the debt is, you'll probably end up having a decent credit score potentially if you've never missed a payment and the utilization is very low, but it's probably not going to be good. Oh well. LOL, 5K. I don't even like using more than 3K on my card. $200 of debt here. LOL, pay that off. Wow, they really just bored, huh? I got 40K? 40K in debt? Really? Lucky I ruined my credit after I purchased a home. Interesting. I wish I only had 5K. Again, if you guys want to learn how to get out of debt, go to 40unbox.com. Glad I got my starter house. The government wants to keep the middle class poor. What makes you think I can buy a house? $9,000 here. Whew, Lord. File bankruptcy. That's not a good option. pay it off every month. Yep. Even better, you just spend wisely and have zero credit card debt. Agreed. I can't even get my FICO score. Interesting. LMAO, I have like 2K in debt and it gets paid off in full every month. I will not be affected. But I pay that off every month, so why does it matter? The thing is, it doesn't. For a lot of people who are good at paying their bills on time, paying their debt off, this is not a big deal at all. Mine is way over that. Excuse me, 5K of credit card debt? I don't let mine go about 500 or above 500. Sweet. So I'm never going to get a house. Wonderful. Man, that sucks. I'm trying my hardest to pay my stuff off. Hey, whoever you are, keep doing it. Pay off your stuff. Who actually has $5,000 in credit card debt? What's really depressing is that a lot of people get into credit card debt. Which, funny enough, what I wanted to kind of show is if you go here and if you check here, which is my TikTok, which has over 1.1 million views, right? Which is hilarious, right? Like, this is my TikTok, right? And I got 1.1 million views, 105,000 likes, and 3,345 comments, which I find to be hilarious, right? Because it's just a point of view video. But in this video, this girl gets into $50,000, roughly speaking, basically like technically like about $46,000 of credit card debt for a wedding. One day, a wedding, okay? That's crazy. Let's see. Any interesting comments on this video? I haven't even checked many of these comments. I knew a couple that spent 100K got divorced a week after paying enough. I forgot I even responded to that comment. Yeah, so a lot of people are going to get into credit card debt, which is kind of like crazy when you think about it, right? Like, credit cards are one of the worst things to actually be in debt. The only thing that like beats them out is student loans because you can't like get rid of them through bankruptcy. So, next to that, it's credit cards. Credit cards is like basically the second worst type of debt to ever have because of the interest rates, right? And I factored it in too on this, where basically she would basically be paying, if she only paid the minimums, she'd be paying like close to 72 years for one day of her life that she put on credit cards. If she only paid the minimums, which is crazy to me. Crazy. And also, I just think it's hilarious that this TikTok got over 1 million views for whatever reason. I just think it's funny. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe for more financial commentary. And again, if you want to learn how to get out of debt, go to 40inbox.com.